Odell, if you want a job, you don't have to push her down and hurt her. Just go on, take the job on over and be done with her, all right? So anyway, thought we was going to have to call an ambulance before that time, you know what I'm saying? And our visitors, you know what I'm saying? Look around you and look at these faces. And if you could do me a favor, I will be at the back at the end of the service. And if every one of these people hasn't shaken your hand or said hello to you or hugged your neck, please let me know. You don't have to know their names. Just describe what they were wearing, okay? Because believe me, I will get it straightened out. You know what I'm saying? But we want you to know that we're so proud that God has sent you our way. And we're ecstatic over what God is doing in and through the life of Bethesda Baptist Church. And so we invite you to sit back, relax, and make yourself right at home. Brother Leroy McKinney is the Kilpatrick Baptist Association director for the Baptist Children's Home. And I can only tell you how proud I am, having dealt with some of the other people that are nominated into positions that are like, you ever met somebody that's a Christian in name only? Well, sometimes you get a director, and they're a director in name only. But Brother Leroy is not like that. He puts a lot of effort into this. He has a heart for children. Matter of fact, all the children in our church call him Papa. You know what I'm saying? And they know Miss Peggy is Mimi. And I'm telling you, I have talked to some people that have graduated college, young people that are maybe working in the teaching field and stuff. They remember Mimi. You know what I'm saying? They went through her class at some time, some of them a couple of times through her class. And I'm going to tell you what, Brother Leroy and them, when you see them out here, you see the kids, they'll come to him. They'll come to him before they go anywhere else. And so he has a heart for that. And we're so very, very thankful for that. God is a tremendous blessing, you know what I'm saying? And he's using Brother Leroy in his ministry. And when you hear about the children's home, I was talking with Brother Mike just a few minutes ago. He said, I'm not a preacher. I said, well, you don't have to be. Their expectations are not very high. I said, you get up here and talk about what God lays on your heart. You know what I'm saying? I want to remind everybody, and Brother Leroy, you can probably broach it again. We are going to take up an offering for the children's home, all right? And what we will do, we'll have the folks at the back door. And as you go out, if you want to drop your check for $5,000 in there or whatever, that's fine, okay? The only thing we ask is if you do a check, if you would please make it out to Bethesda Baptist Church. That way we can write him a check for one thing all at once. And he don't have to worry about getting robbed for quarters and nickels and all that kind of stuff on the way back home. All right? So, anyway, Brother Leroy.
All right. And to Amy and Kristen.
Oh, okay.
They came out yesterday to bingo.
All right. All right.
We have bingo once a month right now. Yeah. And they happened to see the signs out, so they stopped in and had bingo with us, and we invited them back this morning. Glad to see you here.
Amen. Glad to have you with us, Storm. I bet you couldn't have done no better if you'd had a mask and a gun, could you? My wife brings 3 things here and goes back with 27. I don't know how she does that, but anyway. Yeah.
I called Brother Mike a couple months ago and asked him if he would come up and speak to today. Well, the first of the month we had homecoming. The second Sunday of the month they had homecoming. So this is our 3rd Sunday of the month that we were able to get him here. I try to have somebody from the children's homes come at least once a year and speak to us. And Brother Mike was glad to come. He called me Thursday and asked me, he said, we still on? I've got 11 o'clock and I've got 11:20. And I said 11:20 is when we start live stream. And Brother Mike has been at the children's home for 8 years now, in charge. And I have worked with him. I pulled a trailer down there one year, and I said, hey, I can't back this thing up. He says, well, I can. And he jumped right in there and backed that thing up and unloaded it in my van. And but this morning, we've invited him here to talk a little bit about what they do at the children's home. And So at this time, would you please help me welcome Brother Mike Shuman? Amen. Mike, please.
Good morning, good morning. Feels like I'm at home. Got a good laugh, a good spirit, a good welcome, and a pastor that says he's going to knock some heads if they don't say hello. Kind of like me at the children's home. You do the right thing, you're going to get your head knocked. But I do appreciate it. Like Brother Leroy said, you know, I've known him, I'm not sure how many years now, but it's been a while. Been 2 or 3 anyway. Enough to know that if he tells you he's going to do something, he's going to do it, and it's going to be done well. That first time he came, what he didn't tell you was if the maximum load capacity on that minivan was 5,000 pounds, he had 10,000 in it. I said, Brother Leroy, did you skip all the way to Baxley? And because it wasn't that far off the ground. And he had it and a trailer loaded, and I mean loaded. And we appreciate him so much. You know, that's how we make it. That was our introduction, was through the food delivery. But, you know, that goes with everything we do at the children's home. You know, we make it, we survive, and have for a long, long time. By people, by churches, by individuals just like you supporting us. And I appreciate the love offering. You know, oftentimes, you know, you go somewhere or have somebody speak and they come with their hat in their hand. That wasn't the intention. I didn't expect that. Y'all don't have to do that. Y'all support us throughout the year, but we do thank you for doing it. But certainly wasn't expected or wanted. I shouldn't say wanted, you know, certainly we can use it, but not expected. But I do thank you. I did tell you I am not a pastor. I'm an administrator. I am a Christian. I'm saved. I'm humbled to be here. It scares me to death. If you don't believe it, come right here and try it sometime. I didn't realize how big a job it was for the preachers. I've been a Sunday school teacher for many years. It's not the same. You stand right here. There's something about this that it don't make you, or it makes my knees shake. And I had an old pastor friend, I was telling him about it, and he said, if it don't make your knees shake, son, something's wrong. And so, you know, I do appreciate the opportunity to be here. We're going to talk about what's going on at the Georgia Baptist Children's Home. Been going on for a long, long time. We're, you know, over 150 years old now. We started many years back, and it started up near the Atlanta area. And if you hadn't heard this story, it's pretty neat. There's some history about it. You can get around on the website, see it. There's a couple books, but the majority of it is kind of like the old time. It's spoken through the word of mouth. But right after the Civil War, it was the second Baptist church outside of Atlanta. There was a couple of elderly ladies that noticed in their community, in their church and around, there were a lot of kids that didn't have anybody to take care of them. Their daddies, their uncles, their granddaddies had gone on to fight in the war, and they didn't come back. And from that, you know, early onset, that those ladies said, hey, we got to do something. You know, the Bible tells us to help these kids. We got to figure out how to help them. And so that spawned and started the Georgia Baptist Children's Home from you know, the elderly saint Sunday school class or church group that, you know, just saw a need, and, you know, from that, 150 years, 3 different campuses. I don't know the numbers of thousands, but thousands and thousands and thousands of kids have been through there. And, you know, every one of them, we try to point them to the love of Christ. You know, we got a fancy mission statement, and all, you know, what it says is Georgia Baptist Children's Home and our family ministries is a Christian caring ministry of service designed to promote the spiritual, physical, and emotional well-being of children, youth, and families. And really what that means is we meet them where they're at, and we provide for them, help them, and do it through the love of Christ in everything that we do. And that's what we started on, that's what we stand on, and that's, you know, how we continue to do it today. James 1:27, this is James' brother Jesus, tells us that religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit the orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. You know, back 150 years ago, there were a lot of orphans, and they were kids in need. and today. May not be orphans, but there's a lot of kids in need. A lot of kids, you know, I started at the children's home 8 years ago. I'm from Baxley, grew up in Baxley, went to school at Georgia Southern, started right after, even before I finished college, I started working for a boys' home, and I worked with that company for about 20 some odd years, went all over. A great nonprofit, really, really good people. Had about 60 sites like our site in Baxley, and I spent a long time with them. Felt the need to come home. My wife and I have 3 children. My son was going into middle school. The corporate office for that agency was down in Tampa. And, you know, it was the inner city and just, you know, or the city, not really the inner city, but the city. And, you know, we just felt like God was calling us home, that you know, we'd had enough years with that agency to not retire, but to take what we had and leave. And we did. So we picked up, moved to Baxley, and I intended to farm and do some other stuff just to make a living. And that's what I told my wife. You know, I travel all the time. Here, I'm there, I'm yonder. You know, I can't lose my kids or not do what God called me to do for my kids and take care of somebody else's. Well, lo and behold, it wasn't just a few weeks after I got back. The guy who's my boss now called and said, hey, you know, I'm moving to Atlanta. He was the administrator. I'd like to talk to you about running the children's home. You know, I'm going up there to take on a different role. That's where our central office is. I'm going up there, and I'll do that, and I'd like to talk to you about, you know, what that would be. And I kind of chuckled, and I wasn't being ugly, but I knew, you know, what they did. I knew what, you know, the children's home was. I knew him from our time, you know, in that youth industry together. It's not like any other, you know, business or place. You get to know the people that do it. And I said, no, that's not something I'd be interested in doing. If I was going to do that, I'd stay where I was at. I had 20 years of seniority and the benefits that come with, you know, being in a place 20 plus years, the leadership and things that come with it. I said, but thank you for calling me. Call me when you come back to town. We'll go sit down and have lunch. We'll talk about it. You know, I'll put my thinking cap on and figure out, you know, if there's some way I can help or somebody I know that might can help. Really trying to blow him off, you know. And, you know, he did. He called me when he came to town. He said, hey, let's go to lunch. Let's go sit and chat. And I said, man, I'm working today. I'm a little busy. I really can't do lunch, but I can do breakfast. He said, okay, that'll be fine. So we met real early for breakfast, and he started talking. And this was about the holidays. And he said, I'm on, you know, which is what we're looking for. This is what we're doing. And again, I told him, no, sir, that's not something I could do. You know, I'm done, you know, doing that kind of work. I'm going to go back and do something different. And anyway, long story short, man, I left there. It was through the Christmas holiday season, and I just couldn't get a peace. I felt God just knocking on my heart, knocking on my head. I'm kind of hard-headed, and I felt like, you know, he's just beating me up on it. And I told my wife, I said, hey, you know, I think the Lord may be, you know, trying to push us that direction. And she had the same thought I had at first. Are you crazy? I thought you'd left that kind of work. And I said, I don't know. I said, but you know, I'm gonna call him when we get through Christmas and sit down and talk again. So we did, and we met out there this time. And I met with the kids and met the staff and saw what was going on. And you could literally feel, and I'm telling y'all, you know, as a Christian man, having walked in the first time to that place, you could feel the presence of the Lord there. The people that gave us the place, that gave the children's home the place, they're buried there. They were, you know, a family, and this was in 1945 that Baxley started. It was a farm. They couldn't have children. They wanted to help, and so they started the children's home really on their own, and then just a few years later gave it to the children's home and partnered with them to do it. But that humble beginning that they had, you could still feel it today. If you're Christian people, you understand that. You know, so what I told the guy, he's a friend of mine, I said, look, I'll do it on an interim basis, you know. I'll help you find somebody. I know the need. I know the work, I know what we got to do, and I'll do that for 6 months, and I'll help you find somebody to take it. Well, I think that this year coming up will be almost, well, it is 7.5, almost 8 years now. That 6 months has turned into. And, you know, the reason I tell you that, it isn't to brag or be that kind of way. It's just to tell you that, you know, that God called me. I felt it, and I had to go. And all the excuses that I could come up with why I couldn't do it, he just made a way. And every day since then, he's made a way. You know, Brother Leroy mentioned homecoming. We had it last week. We had 100 and some odd, you know, folks that had been there, spent time there, grown up there, come back. We have a worship service in a chapel that's much like this. And, you know, we always start with a good worship service. Well, I met a fella that I hadn't met before. I'd seen his face, but you know how it is when there's that many people. Anyway, he'd been back a few times. And this guy had been there at 2 years old. And he said, I think I may be the youngest resident. And I said, well, I've never met anybody at 2 that was dropped off at the children's home. And I said, well, how long did you stay? He said, well, I stayed until I was 18. And he said, I had to go. And I said, well, look, you may not only be the youngest resident, I believe you're the longest tenured resident we ever had. But those guys come back, they help us. They're a big part of what we do. You know, every year they do something to help improve our place, and then make sure they give back to the kids as part of it too. And we love having them. But that was our homecoming last week. Started in 1946 with this simple, you know, Proverbs that you know comes from Proverbs 22:6. Y'all know it; it's very familiar. Train up a child in the way he should go, even when he's old, he won't depart from it. You know, the pastor and I were talking when I first got here. You know, many of the kids that we work with, 99, 95, some way crazy percentage, have not been trained in the right way. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I can count on 1 or 2 hands, you know, and I can see their faces of the kids that I know that I would say are bad kids. Very few kids that are bad kids, even anywhere you go. I've been in the inner cities in Miami and Atlanta, chasing kids all around. Very few bad kids. When you get a hold of a kid and you strip all that stuff back, most of them are good in the heart. The problem that we face, and this we is collectively us as a church and us as a country, is that our kids hadn't been trained the right way. One, you know, they're not in church. They're not where they need to be. There's not a mom and daddy who are sold out, living for Christ, doing what they're called to do, and training their kids up. So often this train, you know, you think, well, he's a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. How are you going to train him? Well, you just got to start. You know, they have no idea what church is like, no idea what the God that we serve called us as men and women and moms and dads and families to do. So that's a call to all of us, is to train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. Very few kids, and the thousands that I've worked with, come from a good biblical foundation. You know, that their mom and dad are in the home, they're sold out. The vast majority, you know, come from really bad homes, bad situations, drugs, alcohol, sin, pornography, you know, shacking up, whatever you want to call it. Sin creeps in, and the result is kids not doing well. And, you know, so for us, that comes in a bunch of different varieties, and I'm going to talk to you now about the kind of kids that we work with, the kind of kids that we serve. And so, you know, for us, it starts, we have what the state calls, and so we use the same terminology, is basic care. These are kids that you know, kids that their families have lost them. The kids hadn't done anything wrong. More often than not, they've been removed because of, nowadays, it's drugs and alcohol. State comes in, somebody says, hey, you're an unfit parent. We're taking the kids and we're going to send them to the children's home until, you know, we can find a better place. In days gone by, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, up until the 80s, those were the long-term orphanages. And, you know, in those times, most kids would stay. They would not go back. In today's society, in today's laws, the way it is, you know, it's often a revolving door. A kid may come in a year, 2 years, family do some stuff, try to get cleaned up, get the kid back. That's a different soapbox story that we'll talk about a different time. But we have a couple of those cottages that work with 12 kids each, one boy and one girl cottage. And often there are sibling groups where I think every kid that we have in care in that program now is a sibling group except for one. I'm going to tell you a story about this young lady that I'm so proud of. She is so beautiful, has done so well, and she starts college tomorrow. She came to us just a couple years ago, and if I was an artist, I could paint this picture. If I was a poet, I could write this where you'd understand it. But trust me, on a Friday evening, just 2 or 3 years back, it's been a little while, we got a call for a family in crisis. It was 2 sisters and a brother. And when they got to us, you know, about 5:30, 6 o'clock, it was probably as bad as anything I'd ever seen on a teenage child. You are teens or have teens or know teens, especially girls, you know, how they look, how they dress, their appearance is often everything. This was bad. When I say bad, I mean bad. Filthy, dirty, smelly. We couldn't even hardly stand to be in the room with them at 15, 16 years old. And that's where they came from. That's where they were. Finally, somehow, some way, somebody had sense enough to take them out of that horrific place of abuse and neglect that they'd been in, and they brought them to us. And if I could show you the picture, or you could meet this young lady that's with us now, that starts college tomorrow, and see, you know, from the day she walked in until now, that transformation. And yes, it's extreme. I understand that that's not our everyday norm, but from that transformation to where she is today, she couldn't hardly speak, she couldn't hardly talk, she couldn't carry on a conversation. She'd almost turn away, especially if a male tried to speak to her. But she's so loving, she's so friendly, she's so kind. She goes to church with us every week. She's found the Lord, and she's found that inner beauty, her and her sister that are there. And, you know, so that's our basic care kit. No idea, you know, they may call, we may get a call this afternoon, and if we've got a place and you know, can take them, we'll take them. Those are the kids that hadn't done anything wrong, but, you know, because of their family situation, and 99% of those is drugs and alcohol. We have what the state calls, what we call flight program, and I can't remember what the long acronym stands for, but those are kids that have been in a little trouble. I call them my knuckleheads. I can call them that because I was one. I'm sure there's some of you in here that understand what that knucklehead term means. It's not bad. I call them that. But they've done something somewhere along the way, mischievous, broken a law, got in trouble at school, got in trouble at home. Somewhere, somehow, somebody said, hey, we got to pull you out. And we're gonna send you to a place that can help you get your life back on track, and then send you back to where you come from. And so those are our knucklehead boys. And I've got about 20 of them. Pre-COVID, we had one more cottage and had about 30. But right now we're at about 20, and building that back slow. We're not turning away any kids, but just like in our place, you know, everything changed with that. But those kids come, you know, they come from Macon south and just about as wide as the state is. And I'm telling you, they're good boys. If I brought them in right here, set them down, they'd shake your hand, look at you in the eye and tell you good morning, how you doing, welcome. They're fellas that made some bad decisions, but if you track them decisions back, and I have, I know every one of them, know their background, know their families, know where they come from, know where they're going. Somewhere along the way, that first step of training the child in the way he should go was missed. And when that's missed, it's you know, it's a real close line of norm and deviation. We baptized 9 of those young boys last year. And, you know, one of the highlights of my life was those 9. And then I think in basic care last year, we had 8 kids that we baptized. And so, you know, we're not going to get them all, but we're going to try to get every one of them. And so those boys are in school with us. We have school on campus. You know, they're there for, you know, it depends on their behavior. Generally, it's about a year. Some of them are a little hard-headeder than others, and I know that's probably not a good term, hard-headeder, but you understand what I'm saying. It may take them just a little longer to get it, and that's okay. We have, you know, crazy high expectations for them. You know, I tell them, we don't care where you come from, don't care, you know, where you've been, what you've done. What we care about is what you do going forward, and find Christ and do that. You know, we had several of those boys graduate high school this year. I got, you know, and I try to give you a picture of it. One of the young fellas, he helps me a lot. He graduated just this June, and he starts welding class. I think it's that's this week too, it's the 25th. And he came in a place of just, you know, utter chaos, abuse, neglect. And you think a 15, 16-year-old boy can be abused and neglected? Absolutely. When you got somebody who's your family, you know, telling you this is normal, this is what happens, this is how it goes, you know, and it's been going on a long time, it sticks. And this young fella's been with us almost, it was soon after he came. I didn't think we were going to be able to help him. He had a pretty significant mental health issue that you know, affected his ability to talk, affected his ability to walk. And as we're working through it with the therapist, you know, it's just trauma. It's just all trauma that this kid had to get through to get where he's at today. But I'm telling you, he's graduating. He graduated high school, and he's starting welding class in town this week. Fine young man. You met him, you'd say, man, that's a good-looking kid. He's a great guy. He's going places. But a year ago, you met him, you know, he couldn't speak, couldn't hardly talk. And again, an extreme example, but one of what we work with. We do a special needs camp every summer. I think we had 85 special needs kids come through this year. And so what that looks like is these are kids that are cerebral palsy. These are kids that are severely autistic, or kids that aren't, you know, able to do the normal church FFA 4-H camp kind of experience. So for 4 weeks in the summer, we bring those kids in. We put about 20 young, adult, Christian age, senior in high school, graduating to go to college, or college age kid, and they come stay on campus with us. And then we have ladies that are with the special ed departments around. One's a principal, and they, you know, they come and we have camp. Every week we bring a church in. That church helps us feed. We do Bible school. We do arts and crafts. It looks like the summer camp that we all went to if we had the opportunity as kids. And so, I don't know, probably 8 years ago we started that. It's been several years back. And didn't really understand, you know, what we were getting into as we started it. Our other ministry was doing it up north, and we thought we would try to replicate it, and we did. And it has been a really smashing success. And, you know, I knew that we would do well with the special needs kids, but I had no idea what it would do for the counselors. The last 4 or 5 years, we've really poured in. You know, these are kids. These are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old college-age kids that could be in Panama City Beach. They could be in Myrtle Beach. They could be doing whatever. But those kids give their summer to come serve special needs kids. Now, they're paid a stipend. They're not free. But, I mean, it's nothing. It's peanuts. They work hours and hours and hours each week with those special needs kids. And we've really poured into them. What I'm seeing, what we're seeing come out of that is those are our next generation of spiritual leaders that are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids willing to give up their summer to serve a special needs kid and their family. It's been an awesome experience for us that, that we will continue every year. And I'd encourage any of you to come see it. You come anytime, but that's the time, that kind of experience is just really, really moving, and you'll see through the eyes of those counselors what I'm talking about. So we started some years back, probably about the same time, what we call a family care program. And there's 8 apartments just across the street. They're single shotgun style apartments, 1 bedroom, kitchen, little area, bathroom in the middle, and a little living room. And so this is a preventative arm. These are moms, single moms with their children that are in jeopardy of losing them. And they come to us from a referral from a church. They come to us from a referral from a domestic abuse situation or a drug situation. And we run that. There's no time limit. A year or so is what we like to see with them. There's some wicked expectations for them. Most of them probably aren't used to, and they probably the hardest ministry I think that we do is that when you take a mom who's used to living off of other means instead of going to work every day and having somebody in their life making sure that the kids are in school, making sure the kids' needs are met, making sure they're saving money. We help them manage their money. And so, there's 8 or 9 moms at any given day with 2 or 3 kids, depends on the age and the space that are there. And I tell you, it has been, probably the toughest ministry we've done because we're trying to work with an adult. Most of the time, you can sit a kid down, strip all that stuff away, and you got a good kid. Well, when you have an adult, they're oftentimes set in their ways and they have it all together. We tell them, look, if you had it all together, you wouldn't be here. You would not need these services. You would not need that. It's not welfare. We do not offer welfare, and we tell them that. This is a very tough place. We expect you to be up at work every day, get the kids, the school bus comes through. If those kids aren't on the bus, we need to know ahead of time and what's going on, and you need to be, at work so you can provide for your family. There's no cost. We provide all the housing, the electricity, and they just have to get themselves together. What we know is it takes a couple $1,000s minimum, for a mom to go get an apartment, pay the first and last month's rent, security deposits for water, lights, and that's not even counting a vehicle. And it's in our areas like yours, it's rural. There's no public transportation. There's none of that. If you don't have a car, you're going to struggle. So we, really help them manage their money and try to pair them up with a church, and we encourage them to do that. And then our last program that we do on our campus is what we call our community counseling. So all that is every kid meets with a therapist every week, and these are licensed Christian therapists that are on staff that really help a kid unpack and understand what's going on. We've talked about the trauma, we've talked about the neglect, we've talked about the abuse. If you don't deal with that stuff, it's going to come back up. And, we're blessed with a really good counseling center staff of Christian people that help us, help our kids work through that. Let me get back on my program here. So where do our kids come from? They come from private placements. It's at least 2 or 3 times a month, if not every week. We get a call from a parent. Hey, I'm at the end of my line. There's nothing I can do. I've done all I can do with this kid. I need help. And so, we try to help them, whether that's then place them with us or put them on some other resources that we know is available. We do that. We get them from churches. If they've been in a church or if their family's in a church, the pastor's often the one that knows who's in crisis and who's not more than anybody else. And often a pastor will call, hey, I got a kid in crisis, family in crisis, what can we do to help? And so they come from there. We get some from the Department of Children and Families, which is, state government that works with those kids. And then we get some through the judicial system. A judge will say, hey, look, I understand, son, you made a mistake, you did whatever. We're going to send you to this place to help you, get your life on track. And when you finish, then you can come back. And, many times, and I've had to defend this more than anything, and I can defend it pretty well. Why are y'all working with knucklehead kids? Why are you trying to help them kids that made bad choices? And, where I point them always, and this is what Jesus said. This isn't what I said. This is in Luke 5:31. And Jesus answered them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. And the kid that's in trouble don't care. If he's in trouble, they need us. Family's in trouble, they need us. And if somebody doesn't like it, then I'm sorry. I can point them to that verse and say, hey, that's what we do. And we've had a good success with it, been doing it a long, long time. What I can tell you, as the administrator, everything we've ever needed, we've had met. I've never been in a place that gets blessed the way we get blessed. We don't have a lot. We don't have, it's not beautiful. It's not, fancy. It's not, it's not all that. But everything we need, we have. We had a fella, he's a pastor, a friend. He called me about 2 weeks ago. He said, brother, our church has been blessed. We have a unique opportunity to bless you with something that you need. We know, your lawnmowers are in pretty bad shape. They know what we do. And he said, we'd like to bless you with a lawnmower. And what do you need? And so we talked through that. I go to church and real close with and he's a very giving guy that runs the saw shop in our town, the lawnmower shop. And anyway, long story short, he shows up. That was on Thursday. He shows up. No, it wasn't. It was on Monday. He shows up Thursday with a brand new Skag mower that is a commercial grade. We cut 100 acres a week. We start on one end and cut all the way, and by the time we get through, we start on the other. And we had about 30 men. We do it twice a year. The Thursday before Mother's Day and the second Thursday of August, there's 30 or 40 men meet up, and they help us cut it. That's just, I don't know where it started. I do know where it started. The gentleman that started it still comes every time, and it's just, it's just a word of mouth. They've been doing it. We feed them a lunch and have a good time. Well, brother, the pastor I'm telling you about was aware of that, and he said, I'll bring it that day. And he stood up in front of 30, 40 men and said, I'm telling you, since we've been, and he's an old farmer, he said, since our church has been investing here locally and some other places, we've seen, our church has been blessed, And what he said blew me away. I never heard it said like this. He said, we're planting in good dirt. This place is good dirt. It's doing the work that God called it to do. And since we've been helping with them, it's helped us tremendously. And those are his words, not mine. And he's a good guy and a good friend. And I wish he were here today because he's a good preacher too. And I told you that I'm not. So how do we make it? How do we get to where we get to? As administrator, I told you I cover all the financial aspects of it, making sure that we do. Over 60%, 65% last year of the support that we get comes from churches, it comes from individuals, it comes from people. People investing back in our place. At least 80%, and we feed, on average 50 meals a time, 3 times a day. That's 150 meals a day. You do that by 7 days a week, by 365 days a year. There's a lot of food we feed. And at least 80% of it is donated through our local churches, just like Brother Leroy coming with the van, skipping down the road. That's how we make it. That's how we feed our kids. We get some capital donations from individuals, from people. We last year redid our chapel, And, you know, $65,000 or so, we put a roof on, which goes a long way. We put carpet in. We did a lot of it ourselves, and, you know, had the donations to help it. People donate material, like our brother I was telling you about that donated a lawnmower. We've had tractors donated. We've had cows donated. You know, anything and everything you can think of, people have done it to help us. We put down in all of our common areas, the hallways, in all of our cottages, ceramic tile, this big, beautiful ceramic tile that a local contractor had a truckload, and I'm not talking about a pickup truckload, I'm talking about a tractor trailer load that he couldn't use. And we had enough, I used to remember how many thousand square feet it was, but it was a bunch. It was enough to do every cottage, hallway, and the living and the common areas of that. It was all donated. And, you know, then we'd pull the carpet up and we'd get a church group in and we'd put that tile back down. Beautiful tile. But that's how we make it. That's what I'm telling you, how the Lord blesses us. You know, we needed it. He had it, and God saw fit to see it, you know, to send it to us. You know, people ask, how can I help? Y'all already do. You really do. This church, this association helps us with food, supplies, fuel, whatever we need, and gift cards. You know, what I would invite you to do is come see it. You know, I can stand here and tell you about it all day, but I'd love for y'all to come out. You know, we'll take a tour of the campus, you know, ride around, look at it, see what you want to see, meet the kids, meet the families that we work with. Some folks do that in conjunction with like a weekend cookout or a work day. You know, but however, if you'd like to, we'd love to have you. Pastor, I'm at 11:59. I'm going to bring it in. I thank y'all, but do let me pray before we close. Lord God, thank you for this day. Thank you for these people, God. I hope that you were ahead of me with the cross and that these folks can understand, you know, what we're trying to do with your kids and do it the way you called us to do. Lord God, we love you. We thank you. We praise you for this church, for this support that they've given us for years, and that we just ask that it continue. We love you, we praise you, and we thank you. Amen. Pastor's going to come up and close out, but I thank y'all for your time.